After my parents died in a car crash, I moved to my grandmother's ancestral house. The journey itself felt like a passage into another world, winding through mist-shrouded lanes and fields, dotted with crooked trees. The house stood on the edge of a forgotten village, its silhouette looming against the morning fog, like the last memory of something precious and lost. Its stones were worn, its windows dark, and even in daylight, it harbored a silence that seemed to listen. I remember pausing at the threshold, clutching the old brass key in my pocket, hesitant to disturb the hush of the place. It was old, silent, but something inside it remembered everything. At night, the silence deepened, broken only by the wind's low sigh and the distant caws of crows settling in the woods. The floorboards groaned under my footsteps, and the walls creaked with the shifting of old bones. I tried to sleep, but each night I woke at exactly 3:07 a.m. At first, I thought it was just the unfamiliarity. A new bed, the heavy quilts, the shadows crawling across the ceiling. But soon, I couldn't ignore the voices. They began as whispers, drifting through the hallways like the lingering smoke of long-extinguished candles. Sometimes I heard them behind my door, sometimes from the foot of my bed. They spoke in fragments, their words etched with fear and warning. Leave. She's watching. Wrong blood. The clock in the hallway ticked louder as the whispers grew, each chime marking the hour with a dread that settled in my chest. One night, as I passed the mirror in the upstairs corridor, I saw my reflection smile when I didn't. My heart pounded in my ears, but when I blinked, my face was my own again, wide-eyed, uncertain, and alone. The days were no kinder. Grandmother's house was a labyrinth of memories. Faded photographs, embroidered tapestries, and 100 locked drawers. Dust clung to everything, softening the edges of the past, but never erasing them. In the attic, I found an old chest, its hinges stiff with age. Inside, among moth-eaten linens, I uncovered journals tied with brittle ribbon and a stack of black and white photographs. The same woman appeared again and again, sharp-eyed, with a proud tilt to her chin and hair as dark as midnight. Someone had written a name on the back of one photo in trembling ink. Mirela. The more I searched, the more the house seemed to want me to find her. The villagers rarely spoke of the past, but in the market, I heard stories whispered behind cupped hands. Mirela, the Crimson Witch they called her. A healer, some said. A devil's bride, said others. They told of how she helped women in secret, cured fevers, and spoke to the wind. But when the mayor's daughter died, and grief turned to rage, they blamed Mirela. My grandmother, Lucia, they said, was there that night. She watched, silent as Mirela was dragged to the stake. One stormy afternoon, as rain lashed the windows, I sat by the fire, reading through the journals. Most were ordinary, lists of chores, recipes, the small tragedies of daily life. But then, as I thumbed through the last one, I noticed a seam along the cover. Pressing it, I found a hidden compartment. Inside was a thin diary, its pages yellowed and brittle. The words inside trembled with sorrow and accusation. They called me witch for healing, for helping women, for speaking to the wind. But when the mayor's daughter died, they needed someone to blame. Lucia, your grandmother, watched. She let them burn me. I read and reread her words, fingers tracing the faded ink. Mirela's pain bled through every line. A life sacrificed to fear, a voice silenced by the ones she tried to help. As I read, the air grew heavy. The wind outside died, replaced by a hush so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. That night the dreams began. I saw Mirela in the flames, her eyes fixed on mine, not with hatred, but with sorrow. I woke walking, my feet cold on the stone floor. In the mirror, my face blurred, the features twisting, my mouth shaping words I didn't understand. Candles flickered in reverse, the flames shrinking into darkness, and the clocks ticked backward. I was losing myself. She chose me, the kindest of Lucia's blood. I was her key. Soon, I could not tell where Mirela ended, and I began. My hands wrote symbols I had never learned, the ink pooling into patterns that pulsed with ancient power. My dreams bled into waking, and sometimes when I spoke, my voice was not my own. One night, I stared into the mirror, my eyes turning black as pitch. A voice, layered and hollow, echoed out of me.
Why didn't you save me, Lucia?
The arrival of Father Elric was sudden, a burst of hope in the gathering gloom. He came at the request of the village priest, his face grave, his eyes wary. He entered the house with a cross in hand, muttering prayers under his breath. The air seemed to recoil from him, the shadows drawing back as he passed. He studied me, his gaze lingering on my hands, the ink-stained fingers, the bruised circles under my eyes.
That's no longer her reflection, we're losing.
That night, he prepared an exorcism. He drew a circle of salt in the parlour, lighting candles that flickered in the draught. He chanted in Latin, each word a hammer against the walls of the house. But the power within me was not so easily dismissed. As the ritual reached its climax, the candles exploded in a shower of sparks. Laughter bubbled from my lips, not my own. A laughter doubled, layered with Mirela's fury.
Shall we burn again, priest?
The room spun, the world reduced to shards of fire and shadow. The mirrors shattered, reflections multiplying, each one grinning with Mirela's twisted smile. The priest staggered back, his voice drowned out by the cacophony of voices, women's cries, the roar of flames, the village's hate echoing down the years. In the aftermath, the house was changed. The salt circle was broken, the candles snuffed out, the air thick with smoke and old grief. Father Elric slumped in a chair, his faith battered, his prayers failing. I sat by the hearth where Mirela had been condemned, her diary in my hands. The words trembled on the page, a confession waiting to be spoken. Only truth can unbind her. She wrote it herself. I understood then. Mirela's rage was not for revenge, but for remembrance. She had been silenced, her story twisted, her name cursed. Only by speaking her truth could the chain be broken. I sat at the iron post, tears streaming down my face, the words catching in my throat. I read her confession aloud. Her love for the village, her sorrow for the girl she could not save, her betrayal by the family who had called her kin. The fire in the hearth glowed brighter, the air filled with the scent of burning herbs and old tears.
You were wronged, Mirela. My family watched in silence. I am sorry.
For a moment, nothing happened. Then from the flames, a figure emerged. Mirela, her hair streaming behind her like a banner of smoke, her eyes shining with unshed tears. She reached out, her hand cold as moonlight, and touched my brow.
Then remember me, not as a witch, but a woman never heard.
A flash of light blinded me, and when I could see again, she was gone. The silence that followed was deep and clean, like the hush after a storm. Dawn crept through the windows, painting the walls with gold. The birds sang, tentative at first, then louder as the day brightened. I slept for the first time in weeks, my dreams empty, my heart light. The house felt different, less heavy, less haunted. Yet, as I passed the hallway mirror, I caught a glimpse of movement behind me. A shape, a shadow, a memory.
Thank you, but I'm still here.
Some spirits don't want revenge, they just want to be remembered. And so, the house remains, a place of sorrow and healing, of old wounds and new beginnings. Mirela's story lingers in the stones, in the wind, in the hush of midnight. I live here now, not as a prisoner, but as a witness. I tend the garden where Mirela once gathered herbs. I keep her journals safe, her words a testament to the strength and suffering of those who came before. Sometimes, when the night is very quiet, I hear her voice in the wind, gentle, forgiving, reminding me that memory itself can be a kind of freedom. The villagers have begun to speak of Mirela differently. They remember her kindness, her healing, the way she would sit with the dying and the sick, never asking for payment, only gratitude. The old stories, twisted by fear, are slowly untangling. Mirela is no longer the Crimson Witch, but a woman wronged, a healer forgotten. I light a candle for her each night, placing it in the window so the lost and wandering might find their way home. And when I look into the mirror, I see not just my own face, but hers, steadfast, watching, remembered at last. But the house still holds its secrets. There are rooms I have not yet entered, drawers still locked, letters still unread. Sometimes I wake at 3:07 a.m., the wind rattling the windows, the old clock ticking in the hall. I feel her presence then, a weight on my chest, a whisper on my skin. Not vengeance, but longing. Not hate, but hope. She is not the only one who suffered. The village too bears scars. The ones who stood by in silence, the ones who cast the stones, the ones who looked away. We are all bound together by what we remember, and by what we choose to forget. I walk the paths Mirela once walked, gathering herbs, leaving offerings at the crossroads. I speak her name aloud, letting it settle into the earth, into the bones of the house. I listen for her voice in the hush before dawn, in the laughter of children, in the songs of old women. Sometimes I see her in my dreams, standing at the edge of the woods, her hand outstretched. I take it, and we walk together through the mist, past the places where memory and sorrow meet. She does not speak, but I feel her gratitude, a warmth that seeps into my bones, a promise kept. The curse is broken, but the story remains. It is a warning and a benediction. Remember me, she says. Remember us all, and so I do.